December 26th, 2019, and well, all the presents have been opened. Christmas is over, but yet there are still some players out there to be had. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Arnie's Fantasy World of Sports. Joining me again this morning, my brother Kevin. We're going to be talking about the latest rumors, and of course, I guess we got to start in Milwaukee, where it just seems the Brewers, they want to deal Josh Hader, and apparently they want to deal him to the New York Yankees.
Well, I think Hader would be a great pickup for the Yankees. You got one of the top left-handed relievers in the game. There's some people that are even saying that if the Yankees get Hader, everybody else is playing for second place. And, man, what a left-handed relief staff you've got there with Aroldis Chapman, Zach Britton, and Josh Hader. I don't know as if I remember in recent memory any relief staff with left-handers stocked like that. And, of course, you still have Adam Ottavino, Tommy Kahnle, on the other side, Chad Green. It's a very impressive bullpen, and now that you've got Garrett Cole as the headliner and the ace for that staff, maybe a healthy Luis Severino, and this Yankee team that won 103 games last year looks very formidable.
Well, you know, I guess the Yankees are tired of people saying this was the decade that they didn't make the World Series. They're trying to change that abruptly in 2020. The holdup, it looks like, what I'm reading this morning, is the Brewers and Yankees have talked about Andujar going over to Milwaukee along with rookie prospect Deivi Garcia. The Brewers are wanting a third piece, and the Yankees have been hesitant to offer that third piece. Third piece being another young player, prospect type, high minor leaguer. There's been several names mentioned. Clark Schmidt, one of those, who is a starting pitcher in the Yankees rotation. The Yankees seem a little reluctant to go with that third piece, although other reports that I've been reading say this is imminent. So let's talk just a moment about the new rules, because I think this is new rule driven. With the new rule that a reliever coming into the game has to face three batters barring some injury. Now, there is concern that all of a sudden now we're going to have pitchers faking injuries, but that has been calmed somewhat by the new 15-day IL rule. But the main purpose of the rule is that we won't be changing pitchers. Specialty pitchers will basically be eliminated, which means a player like Hader becomes extremely valuable. Hader, who can get out the lefties and the righties and can pitch the full inning. And the Yankees are looking to add that piece. When you talk about that rotation, you just mentioned it, Severino, Cole, and just go on down the list. You're talking about pitchers who can go deep into games anyway. And now by expanding that bullpen, well, the Yankee pitching just looks to me like it's unbeatable almost, barring some injury. And, of course, the injury bug is always something to be concerned about, and it was with Hader towards the end of last year.
Well, Hader is a little bit of a question mark. You remember he was lights out until about August, and then all of a sudden he started giving up leads, and we all recall the wild card playoff game where Milwaukee takes a 3-1 lead into the eighth, and Hader gives that up. And that's something that you wonder, was he taxed so much because Milwaukee really had nothing else in the bullpen but him, and he was the guy that they continually went to over and over again. And we know how sometimes that continued use can wear down a pitcher. So is that it? Maybe a rest during the off season, and the fact that he will not be used as much since you've got so many complementary arms there that are on par with him in the Yankee bullpen. And then, of course, there's the question of Mark about Miguel Andujar, who, by all opinions, rightfully could have been the American League Rookie of the Year 2 years ago. He had so many doubles and home runs. I think his name was mentioned up there with the Roos and the Garrigs as far as his first year with the Yankees. And that's a question mark. He was hurt last year. He's had the surgery, and now he's back. And question marks on both sides, but both players could really make a difference for both squads.
So that's the take of Hader. Now, that's what might happen. Here's something that did happen. Over the weekend and going into yesterday, Finally, a deal was consummated with Edwin Encarnacion. The designated hitter first baseman now is a Chicago White Sox. And as you know, I've been talking the White Sox up, the White Sox and the Reds, to win both Central Divisions in the major leagues this year. But now with the addition of Edwin Encarnacion, you look at that White Sox lineup, and no matter where you put the batters in the lineup, you've got Abreu at first. And now you've got some service time issues with Luis Robert and Nick Madrigal. But you've got Madrigal, who's going to be the second baseman. Moncada's going to be at third. You've got Anderson at shortstop. They've just signed Grandal to catch. You've got Eloy Jimenez. I'm telling you, this White Sox team is loaded for bear. Now, I realize that you're dealing with a lot of prospects and a lot of young players. And as Lenny Melnick will say, a rookie is a rookie is a rookie. But you've got rookies here who have excelled at every level. Robert last year tore up single A, double A, triple A. Madrigal was World Series, a College World Series, most valuable player a few years back. He hardly ever strikes out, great contact. They also go and add pitching to a young staff that was already very talented. I like the Dallas Keuchel pickup, Kevin, and I like the White Sox in 2020.
You know, the White Sox remind me a little bit of the way they have formed this team and the way they've brought their prospects up and added a few veterans here and there of a team back around 2013-14 and started to get better and better, and then around 2015 the fruits of their labor showed, and then we've seen what they've been the last few years, and that's the Houston Astros. The Astros were a team that were mired down in the bottom part of their standings. They brought up these incredible prospects, Correa, being one of them. Of course, George Springer, we heard about the year of George when he came up, and now we see these are now bona fide superstars in the major leagues. And Chicago's got a lot of these guys. I think it was very important that they re-signed Jose Abreu. He's kind of the rock of that batting order. And now they've got Edwin Encarnacion, who, although he's getting a few years on him, and he did not perform so well for the Yankees in the playoffs last year, he is a battle-tested veteran that, given good health, that would be great to their lineup. And I think on the pitching side, adding a Dallas Keuchel does somewhat similar effect for that rotation. You bring in a guy who's got the experience, can really be a mentor to some of these young guys, the Giolitos and the Rodons and those guys, and it's going to be a fun time in the Windy City.
You know, looking at the White Sox pitching, and I want to talk about that for just a moment, because remember last year, how many people in fantasy really drafted Lucas Giolito? I mean, Giolito came off of a 2018 season with absolutely horrible numbers. And I don't know anyone really who drafted Giolito. Now, Giolito was picked up off waivers fairly quickly. And I want to comp for just a moment Dylan Cease rookie year to Giolito's. Now, last year Dylan Cease was not impressive. When he was called up from AAA, he did not overwhelm, he did not impress, but he has incredible stuff, similar to Giolito. And now I think having that, if you will, indoctrinatory period in the major leagues where he got in, he got his feet wet, roughed up a little bit, probably some humility, did the kid some good. Now he's coming back for his first full year, Giolito coming off an incredible year. And there's another pitcher here that we haven't talked about that I want to bring up real quick, and it's Michael Kopech, who came over in the sale deal. And Kopech, coming off TJ injury surgery, he's going to be back this year. Will come into that rotation as well. Add that to the Lopez at the end. Add that now to Keuchel at the top. They really look solid to me. And the other thing I want to take a look at is when you consider the division that they're in. You know, you got Detroit, you got Kansas City. Do you really think they're going anywhere this year? Absolutely not. Minnesota, of course, the 100-win team from a year ago. But let me ask you, Is there anything about the Twin pitching that really scares you?
I think you make a great point there, considering the level of competition in the division. I think there's another pitcher you didn't mention who could be coming off injury too, and that's Carlos Rodon, who's one of the best college pitchers I've ever seen, and showed that kind of flair when he was healthy for the White Sox. But piggybacking on your point, basically, this team has got a lot of tools. They got a lot of young pitchers. Now they've got some veteran hitters to go with some really good young hitters. I love Tim Anderson. You mentioned him. I had him on my fantasy squad last year. When he got hurt, it really did some damage to my team, but he's just a guy who's going to get on base, who's going to steal some bases for you. He's got some pop. He's a 20-20 guy that you can count on almost every year, and I'm with you on that. I'm catching on to the Chicago White Sox bandwagon because those guys can really play. They're young, and I think they're hungry, and they're in a division that they can win.
There was some discussion yesterday about Houston and how good will the Astros be. So let's turn our attention for just a moment to the American League West, and let's talk about some of the teams in that division. Who's gotten better? Who's gotten worse? Who stood pat? The Texas Rangers. You got to say, if there's an A for effort to be given, it's got to go to the Rangers. They make the trade for Corey Kluber. Now, I'm not impressed with Corey Kluber's 2019 season for two reasons. He was injured, and when he wasn't, he stunk it up. Now, he's a two-time American League Cy Young winner. So Corey Kluber has certainly proven in the past, proven worthy, if you will, of the accolades of Cy Young. Where I've missed the boat with Kluber is I've never seen him really dominate in the playoffs when Cleveland's been there. But during the regular season, he's been a stud, number one. And for the Texas Rangers to land this type of player, and I'm very familiar with the Rangers minor league system. They are loaded with pitchers in the minor leagues. They've got some pretty good hitting talent as well. I do know this, their high A team last year had the best record or second best record ever in the Carolina League. You can credit that to good pitching and good hitting. And so the Rangers are building for the future, yet at the same time trying to add. I think they've improved. Seattle, I haven't seen anything out of them. I think they're the doormat of the division. Oakland, always a threat, and with Luzardo there for a whole season, I think he's going to be something to reckon with. I think he's one of those top-line pitchers you don't see very often. And then there's Houston. Anaheim, of course, better with Rendon, still looking for a quality starter. They did get some pitchers in Bundy, but I'm not carried away with Dylan Bundy. Houston loses Garrett Cole. There's also the cloud hanging over their head about stealing signs, and we don't yet know what the commissioner will do. Kevin, what do you think about that American League West? It's been a busy offseason so far, and we're not even into January yet.
I think the American League West is probably one of the most intriguing divisions in the game. Houston, you mentioned it. There is something about that cloud hanging over their head, but there's also something about you've got Justin Verlander and Zach Greinke as your two top pitchers. Now, you're talking about 37 years old and 38 years old. Now, both of them were, by the end of last year and in the playoffs, were the stars that they are. However, I could see some regression there. At some point, the age can take a toll on you, and they don't have that young stud, that 29-year-old guy who did not lose a game after May, and Garrett Cole. I could see some regression from the Astros. Texas is an intriguing squad. Corey Kluber, if he could be the ace that he was, that could be a very interesting division. I would go with the Rangers to not quite beat out the A's, but I could see the Rangers and the Astros being second and third to the A's. The A's are the team that I'm looking at to win that division next year.
I was reading yesterday, here you go, top 5 pitching staffs, starting staffs in the major leagues projected going into 2020. And of course, you got the Yankees, you've got teams like Oakland. You've got the Braves. You've got Cleveland. Those are your pretty well-established rotations. But guess who I saw ranked at number 5 yesterday? I'm going to lead you into it because you saw the same article. The number 5 ranked pitching staff, starting-wise, in the major leagues is
Cincinnati Reds.
You got it.
Yeah, Cincinnati Reds, they've got Luis Castillo up there now. Trevor Bauer was put as the number 1 ace. And, of course, when he came over to Cincinnati last year from Cleveland, he was not the pitcher that he was while he was in Cleveland. Maybe that was just some getting used to the National League, just some getting used to a new team, a new city. But if Trevor Bauer can come back to the form that he was, Sonny Gray really pitched well for them last year. Now they've added a Wade Miley who, up until August last year with Houston, was very good. Now the Wade Miley in late August and September was really nothing to write home about. But they've got some proven veteran pitchers, some guys that can really get you some innings, eat up some innings for you. And then they've added Mike Moustakas to an already pretty formidable lineup that really didn't produce up to the standards that they had the past few years. And I think there's a stat that they lost the most one-run games of any team in Major League Baseball last year. So, yeah, there's some areas there. I could see the Reds maybe winning 90 games next year.
I tell you, I like Amir Garrett a lot. I like Mike Lorenzen a lot in that Red bullpen. Talk about the rotation, but if you can't close out the deal, you can't win. And I like the back end of the bullpen, of course, Iglesias. I think that the Reds could well be the winners of the Central. Now, let's talk about that Central for just a moment. And I want to put some time, and thank y'all for joining the chat room. And I will tell you, Kevin Hastings, aloha from Hawaii. He is following today's show, and Kevin's always got a great show for you. I enjoyed doing the show with him earlier in the week and look forward to doing some more of that in the near future. Kevin, I'll probably text you later today and see what's up with you tomorrow. How about that? But let's talk about the Cubs for a moment. And one of the things that you keep hearing out of the Windy City on the north side is the trade of Chris Bryant. Now, remember, it wasn't long ago that Chris Bryant was easily in fantasy a top 10 draft pick. It wasn't that long ago. And Chris Bryant, still in his 20s. Are the Cubs wise or unwise to trade Chris Bryant? And if you trade a Chris Bryant who can play outfield and third base, what type of package are you looking to receive in return? You know, the Yankees are talking about trading for a Josh Hader, who's a relief pitcher, talking about giving up an Andujar and a Deivi Garcia for a relief pitcher. Don't you think, Kevin, that a player like Chris Bryant would demand much more than that in a trade?
Well, obviously he would, Arnie. He's an MVP of 2016. He can play multiple positions. There's going to be a big market for him in my mind. Yeah, he's dropped off a little bit, but he's still very young. He's a complete player. He can hit for some average. He hits with power. He drives in runs. He can play third base. He can play outfield. There's just not a lot he can't do when he's healthy and when he's playing at his best. If I'm Chicago, yeah, I may put him out there saying he's on the trade market, but in order to get a Chris Bryant, you better bring back a King's ransom. You better bring back several major league ready players and probably some prospects. I would be looking to do to Rob from the other sport, I'd be looking to do a Herschel Walker type deal with Chris Bryant.
So another player that's talked about, and I really thought we may hear something, and we still may this week. But Cleveland said last week, hey, teams, give us your best offer for Frankie Lindor by the weekend. This was last weekend. And assuming that happened, there's still been no news that I've read this morning of Frankie Lindor moving. The Reds have been mentioned. The Dodgers have been mentioned. Somewhere way down the line, the Yankees have fallen in, but I think the Yankees are probably not players in Frankie Lindor sweepstakes. But the Reds and the Dodgers have been mentioned in that trade. He's locked up for at least one more year after this one. Do they trade Frankie Lindor? And now let's also look at the fact that they went out over the weekend and signed Cesar Hernandez, second baseman formerly with Philadelphia. Pretty good stick, power, RBIs. He can steal a few bases. Do you think now that Cleveland is as willing to trade Lindor, and will he command the same type of price as a Chris Bryant?
Well, I think he can. I think Frankie Lindor is every bit the player Chris Bryant is. He brings you power. He brings you a switch hitter. He's a shortstop. He's got speed. He's a 5-tool guy. Once again, if I'm Cleveland, I ask for a king's ransom. I get Major League ready players and Major League. When I say Major League ready, I mean there may be an all-star in there. You're not just going to give away Frankie Lindor. My opinion is they're not going to get a trade because they're not going to get what they want. I don't think teams are going to give up a king's ransom for 1 year of control. It's just a lot to give up. As a matter of fact, you're talking about the Yankees. I was talking to a Yankee fan the other day, and he was talking about, I'd really love to have Lindor and give up, say, an Andujar and Abreu, Estevan Florial, some of their top prospects. But for what? For 1 year? And does that, the Yankees are one of the favorites, for instance, to win the World Series anyway. So why do they make the trade and then lose all those prospects at that point in time? Now, Frankie Lindor is a special, special player, and that may put you over the top. That may be the difference maker that it takes. With the Reds involved, who do the Reds give up? Do they give up Eugenio Suarez? Do they give up one of their already they got a Freddie Galvis at shortstop? But that would be a very formidable up the middle with Moustakas and Lindor if they were to get him. I could see the Dodgers being a player, if anybody, because they've got such a deep farm system.
The thing the Dodgers keep saying is we're not going to trade Gavin Lux. We're not going to trade Gavin Lux. And to me, here maybe I'm wrong, and chat room, you can disagree or agree with this. The thing is, Lux to me is still an unknown quantity. He is an unknown quantity. A few at-bats in September does not a career make. Lindor is a known quantity. And if I'm the Dodgers, a team like the Dodgers on the cusp of being great, that's the type of team I can see Frankie Lindor going to. Because he is the type player, if you're at a 90, he can make you a 95. If you're at a 95, he can make you a 98. I mean, he can get you to that next level. And so I'm a little perplexed at why the Dodgers will not be willing to deal Gavin Lux in a package for Frankie Lindor. Now, going to your point, if it's because of control, you're going to have him for 1 or 2 years and then he's gone. Okay, I understand that. But if you're looking to win, and LA, come on, if there is a team that's got to be hungry for a World Series, remember, I was 23 years old when they won their last World Series. I'm 54 now. My math says that's 31 years. They've gone 31 years since a World Series. This coming season will be 32 if they don't make it. That's a long time to go when you're from a big market like the Dodgers. Remember, every team, the Chicago White Sox, the Chicago Cubs, the Houston Astros, the Los Angeles Angels, the New York Yankees, and the New York Mets, the top 4 markets in the country, all 7 teams have won a World Series since the Dodgers. The Dodgers have the longest drought of any of the top 4 markets in the major leagues. I think they are the team to pull the switch for a Frankie Lindor and see what happens.
It's interesting that you talk about the Dodgers like that. You're talking about a team that won over 100 games last year and has been a perennial power, making the World Series, of course, 2 years ago, and coming up short. But the thing about the Dodgers that befuddles me a little bit, for instance, Hyun-Jin Ryu just signed with the Blue Jays. He was a top pitcher for the Dodgers last year. I don't know what they're seeing there. I know they've got the good prospects, and they still, of course, have Buehler and Kershaw. But Rich Hill's still out there. I know he's dangling as a free agent, thinking that he may still come back and sign with the Dodgers, but he's one that has lots of injury problems. So I'm a little concerned about what the Dodgers are thinking. They've really been stagnant in the offseason. So with that in mind, they may be ready to make that splash. That may be what they're waiting for and of course Frankie Lindor would be that splash. He could be that difference maker that could come in and really change the fabric of that team, change that lineup, give them that extra push, that speed, that power. And like you say, 31 years is a long time, and they're looking at teams that have improved. They're even looking at their crosstown rivals who got Rendon. Probably that was somebody they were involved heavily in. Garrett Cole, they made a $300 million package offer to him. So they've swung and missed this offseason. And the fan base isn't very happy about that. And you're talking about a fan base that's itching for a title. And it will be interesting. I think if there is the team to pull off the Lindor deal, it would be the Los Angeles Dodgers.
So a lot to talk about. Presents are still yet to be opened by these teams. We'll see how it goes. Hey, I've enjoyed being with you this morning, the day after Christmas, December 26, 2019. I'll be back with you next week. Everybody have a great day. Kevin Hastings follows me. Kevin, I'm looking forward to your show. Talk to you soon, everybody. This is Arnie on Arnie's Fantasy World of Sports.